Hello and most welcome to our tonight episode. I'm so glad actually today to have our guest for the second time and talking about the same topic which we have talked at the first episode. At the beginning we talk about how to speak like a leader, but today it will be a little bit different under the same umbrella of the leadership, talking about her first book, Become a Global Leader. And I feel that, and I told her actually before the live that I feel that I'm coming to celebrate actually one of the greatest milestones in her journey. For any manager, any leader, anyone actually in the top management who is dreaming to have a great team with a great leadership skills, this episode is yours. Stay tuned.
Welcome, listeners. Today we are delighted to bring you another inspiring episode of Tahaddi, the podcast dedicated to helping you enhance your management skills and navigate your career journey. Your host, Sameh Makky, your go-to expert in project management and career coaching. Every Wednesday, we invite esteemed guests to join us and share valuable insights from their respective industries. They will provide unique perspectives and practical advice, leaving us all with a nugget of wisdom to apply in our personal and professional lives. Newcomers to our show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you stay updated with every new release. Now, let's kick off today's engaging discussion. Stay tuned.
Hello and most welcome again to our exclusive episode celebrating with our guest about one of greatest milestones and publishing her first book, Become a Global Leader. Our guest is a multi-award winning coach, speaker, and certified facilitator, specializing in global leadership, communication, and culture intelligence. She helps professionals and organizations to empower themselves and their current and future global leaders to amplify their impact. She is the CEO and founder of Cuppa, author and top-ranked podcast host with over 155 episodes and counting. Her first book, Become a Global Leader, published in November 2025. Please join me in welcoming Victoria Rennoldson. Victoria, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it's an absolute pleasure to be back on the show. And thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. Wow. I feel very exciting when I listen to that.
Really, I would like to thank you for joining us today, for your time and preparation as well. And I'm sure that today insights which you are going to present to us, it will help and it will be much useful for our audience today. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to hearing the questions, sharing more about my book journey. So yes, looking forward to it, Sameh.
Yes, most welcome. I would like to say thank you actually to everyone joined us up to the moment and the people who are going to join us during the episode and even the people who don't have time right now and they are going to see our streaming after publishing on all of our platforms in YouTube, Facebook, and also our accounts on LinkedIn. If you have any question, you can put it in the chat box and we are going to discuss it today with Victoria. And as you notice right now, you will find, a QR code on the corner, on the above corner regarding the book, how to register and apply, and as well also to get the book from the store. Victoria, I will not get in directly to the book and the amazing thoughts I have read about. I have tried actually to get it. Maybe I didn't get all, but I have tried to get, the most points we can discuss today. But I would like to hear and listen to your journey regarding the idea, how it appeared actually, and when you decided you are going to write a book, regarding the steps you have taken, regarding the structure and the framework you have maintained in your book.
These are great questions, and thank you so much for these. And I suppose the first sort of part of this answer is that this year is my 10th year in business. I've been running my business now for 10 years, helping global managers, leaders to fulfill their really ambitious career dreams and goals. And so I knew, although I'd had a really long dream to write a book, I knew this was the year that it had to happen. my work, particularly in the last few years, has really focused on helping individuals, professionals, but also teams in organizations from small to very large multinationals, helping them to thrive in their global careers, to achieve their goals through the power of communication, connection, and cultural intelligence. And I realized that with the frameworks I developed, the tools, the strategies that I'd worked with clients and used incredibly successfully over the last 10 years, this was a moment where I wanted to bring it all together to much more broadly, because as much I love working one-to-one, I love working with teams, of course, I can't be everywhere all at once. So for me, this book really is about, helping people to access my work, get the best of my experience, my insights, and I designed it to be incredibly practical to apply it. So, this was the reason why I wanted to write it this year. But that was the dream. That was the start of it.
That is great. Let me ask you actually regarding the title and topic as well. Why leadership? Why not communication? Why not,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence? You are working and discussing with people on daily basis on those, different topic. Why you have picked the leadership exactly?
Absolutely. So my work, as you quite rightly say, is really about where communication meets cultural intelligence. That's been the core thread through everything that I do, whether it's with the individuals or the teams that I help. And what I realized was that the people that I help are working across multiple sectors. They're not from one industry, they're not from one particular role. They work in many different countries around the world, and some are in global roles today, and some have ambitions to go into global roles. But the thing that unites them is that they are talented. They already have the experience and skills and really great expertise behind them. And often, as I'm sure many of your watchers and listeners have, they have great qualifications behind them, amazing qualifications. But what holds them back from becoming a global leader to reaching that goal is the way that they show up, the way that they project themselves, have leadership or executive presence, the way that they speak and communicate. And yes, that can be public speaking, really influencing from the stage or influencing from industry thought forums. But it also can be how you communicate in meetings, influence people, how you lead people. And so, for me, these skills, the way you communicate, the way you're able to connect with people around the world, particularly if you're leading teams where people are based in many different locations, your ability to understand the cultural nuances of interactions and communication, to be able to understand what motivates people, how to encourage them to take action. These things are so critical. And sometimes they're called soft skills. And this word, this phrase, I find is not the right phrase, because
Yeah,
soft skills sounds like it's something not maybe optional, maybe
something light.
something light, oh, it's just easy or it's soft. But this is a massive misnaming area. For me, these are about essential human capabilities that we need absolutely more than ever in this current world that we live in, if you're going to succeed as a leader. So this is why this is the keys, as I see it, to unlock people's growth, their development, that gets them to that leadership level.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Victoria, I believe that all of us, all of the people actually are hearing and listening now to our episode, believes in the importance of soft skills. And I will not call it from today soft skills. I will call it only human skills or human capabilities, like what you call it right now. All of us actually believe in the importance of the technical skills. But why do you think that the human skills or human capabilities, is much important or matters a lot, and it's considered like the biggest leadership gap nowadays?
Yeah. Well, what is fascinating about this, and as part of my investigations in the book and researching, is that the research is really compelling. It talks about, Deloitte in their Human Capital Trends report this year talk about how HR leaders are finding people joining organizations without the essential people skills. They're not able to have good conversations, to have meetings that bring people together. Equally, Gertner consultancy talk about the fact that there's an urgent need for leadership skill development. And there is equally research that talks about you can increase your employability through developing your human capabilities. So it's not either or, it's both and. Of course, the technical skills are important. Of course, the kinds of people who might be listening and watching this may come from technical backgrounds, and that's incredibly critical to their success. But ultimately, if you want to make it through to leadership, you need an edge, you need a differentiating factor. And I believe your human capabilities are those differentiating factors. That's how you communicate your vision. That's how you inspire people. You encourage them to take action and influence them to come with you and do something. It's how you influence internally and externally. And ultimately, this is how you build the connection with people that enables your results. So it's not about being nice. It's not about being an engaging leader for that sake, but it is absolutely about being engaging, bringing people with you to speed up performance, to be able to motivate people towards giving their best, even in tough and challenging moments. So for me, this idea is not about either or, technical skills or human skills. Is absolutely about both together and the power of that.
Before yesterday, actually, I was a guest on an podcast episode, and we agreed that the technical skills can lead the people to more technicality, and they will actually be distinguished while they are working. But it will not lead them to managerial and leadership positions.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with that. I think that's a really valid point. The technical skills, of course, are important, whatever your field is. And at some point, this will help you in your career to progress from early career to mid-management and possibly up to senior management. But moving up into leadership roles, this is a different skill set. In fact, actually, you no longer require necessarily to be that specialist knowledge. That's why you have the team underneath you to support you and help you with that, right? Now, it does depend on the size of your organization, but I ultimately believe, particularly in the world today, your ability to cut through, to stand out, your ability to have impact is really about the way that you not only operate, but how you build your relationships, how you relate to people, whether they understand where you're coming from and whether you can understand where they're coming from. And that's where particularly things like cultural intelligence come into play. Many of the people that I'm working with, even if they appear to work in one location, may be part of diverse teams. So culture, yes, is about national culture, but it's also about increasingly generational culture. So understanding how do you connect if you are in your 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s with somebody who is in their 20s entering the workforce. Equally, cultures span organizations. The culture that exists in technical functions might be really different from those in sales or in marketing. And again, knowing how to influence people, how to connect with them, bring them with you with what you're trying to achieve to enable your results. This is powerful. This is really powerful. And this is why I say, human connection is a superpower. You need, as a leader, when you realize this is when you understand you need to invest your time and your focus, intention in how you do this.
That is great. I would like to say thank you to everyone joined us up to the moment. Sara Al-Fiqi, Khalil Al-Sayed, Helmi Adel Al-Sawi, thanks a lot for your joining and for your time today. Actually, they have started to put some questions, but we will take later on while we are discussing our topic and our actually thoughts in the book today. Let me say to you that when I have read some of the book, you built your book on a 4-pillar framework. Yeah. And you said that this 4 pillars, actually, it's going to lead us for the success of global leadership, which we are dreaming with. Can you give us a brief or general idea about the framework? Then we will get into the details.
Absolutely. So this framework is a real framework that I use with my in my business, with my clients, when I'm coaching, when I'm training and facilitating. And what it is founded on is my experience, my insight into what is required to enable people's communication and connection and collaboration. And so the framework, the four pillars of what I call global leader communication, starts with confidence. So this particular pillar, the first one, is called empower your confidence. Now, I'm a great believer that confidence is a journey that we go on. And no matter how confident people seem on the outside, there are always edges. And as their context grows, as they expand and become going up the ranks, or they go into more senior leadership roles, then you have to imagine that the confidence has to keep on expanding. So many people feel like confidence is like a light switch, which you turn on, stays on permanently, and that's just how it
Yeah.
is. But the reality is it goes up and down. So that's why, for me, confidence is part of your self leadership. It's part of understanding that if you are aiming for roles which are above your area right now, you will need to think about how you show up, how you have that executive or leadership presence. How do you walk into the room? How do you speak? And really own what you're good at, what you're talented at. So that first pillar is all about this confidence.
Confident.
And I'm sure it's the theme that you've talked about lots on this podcast, right? But it is absolutely, for me, a critical topic at every level. And my experience tells me that it doesn't matter how senior somebody is, they also have the self-doubt, the fears sometimes, even the wobbles around, am I the right person for this job? And so what we want to do is turn that into self-trust, self-belief, into recognition that each individual brings so much value, and you are unique in the way that you do that from every other leader. So it's that pillar is about recognizing what holds us back, but also has some really specific exercises, activations, really specific strategies to help you really evolve your confidence over time. So that's the first pillar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Yes.
Good. And then the second pillar is all about influence. So understanding how you are communicating clearly, having the clarity to express your thoughts to influence others. Now, sometimes people equate influence with manipulation. This is not what it's about. It's really thinking about, who are you talking to? What is motivating to them? Why are you communicating with them? What is the purpose of it? And then getting super clear on what is your message and what is the action. It sounds simple, but so often I find people are overcomplicating communication. They're making it too complicated, particularly in spoken word, right? And so this is about getting to the point, structuring how you express yourself to elevate the way you sound, really making sure that the way you're landing your ideas is spoken in the same language as the people. Now, for the people listening and watching, maybe they are coming from technical backgrounds. Sometimes you have amazing knowledge and insight in your brain, but to be able to translate that into the language of the business, the language that is understood across non-technical functions, that's really critical, right?
Wow. Uh, do you believe that those kind of skills actually could be developed? And if I'm coming to you right now, Victoria, and I'm telling you that I'm shy, I'm not talking, more in the meeting. I'm not sharing my thoughts from time to time. I cannot, present well or present in a good manner. It can be developed actually, and I can work to develop my skills on this area which we have mentioned right now.
Absolutely. So for me, this is, for sure, whatever the starting point is, whether somebody's fearful of speaking up, whether they feel that it's more about the presenting and public speaking, or whether they're already got that nailed and actually it's much more about the next level. Like I sometimes help people who are ready for panels, industry panels, or getting on the stage. I even have helped people who are, getting in front of cameras and being interviewed by the media because they are a thought leader, an expert. So my belief is that this is not a talent that we're born with. In fact, very few people are born that confident. In fact,
That's
we
right.
develop this over time. So the idea of this for me is this is something that we lead ourselves through, that we develop the skills through. And, I have a real mantra, which is practice makes confidence. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to aim to be like a TEDx speaker every time. If that, yes, that might be somebody's
On the
goal.
spot.
But exactly. But right, for the everyday, like sometimes it's enough to be just communicating confidently. And I believe everybody can do that. So, 2 pillars, confidence, we've got clarity
And
for influence.
clarity, yes, to increase the influence is the third pillar.
Yes. The third pillar is all about bridging challenging conversations. The reason this is a pillar is because this comes up time and time again. So I have conversations almost every day with leaders who, again, whatever their level, are experiencing tough discussions they need to have, feedback, confrontation, managing conflict within the team. And it's not easy because this is where culture comes in. The way that we disagree, the way that people will give feedback in one culture can be very direct, very to the point, but that might be received in other cultures as rude or even offensive. And so this idea of, what is professional behavior, particularly with challenging conversations, is very cultural. So you have to understand, how do we approach that? And this is where I share in the book my particular tool, my particular framework, which is all about the challenging conversation bridge, as a way to help people think about how do they approach the conversation to not win the argument. That's not the goal. The goal is to find a way forward and move forward.
Wow. Okay. Especially when you are talking about this point and this pillar of your book, I remember right now, many complaints from maybe many of my colleagues and some of my friends. Not even the challenge from coming from the leader actually to talk to some member of the team, or talk to some of the stakeholders of the projects they are working on, but even backwards. When I'm taking to my manager and I need to discuss a critical discussion and the critical points, it can help me as well also while I'm reading the book.
Absolutely. So the point is that it helps with all sorts of interactions to our peers, the people who are at the same level as us, because sometimes that's where the tricky conversations are, where you're equal and therefore it's different. You have to influence in a very specific way.
Yes.
But equally, managing upwards, that can be super challenging. And particularly in cultures, in organizations which maybe have high power distance, that means maybe quite hierarchical. You have to really plan and think about how to give that feedback. What is going to be the best way? So there are tools in this book that can help with that those feedback mechanisms to enable you to do this, to be able to give that feedback in a way that is appropriate, professional, lands the message, but equally really is respectful of the relationship, and thinking about how you do that is going to still boost your career, not be career limiting.
Amazing. We will get to this in details actually little bit in later on the episode. Let's get ahead actually and take an idea about the fourth pillar.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. So the fourth pillar is called Connect with Cultural Intelligence. You've heard me talk about it a few times here today,
Sure.
but this pillar really is very close to the heart of this book and to my heart as well, because for me, this is about, why are we finding it hard to have conversations at work? And what I often talk about in my work is that collaboration tools that we have access to are fantastic. We are so able in this world to speed up the pace of our communication through the connection tools that we have available to us, the Zooms and the Teams and the Google Meets and all the other collaboration tools that exist for us. But what I so often see with the teams I work with the individuals I support, is this massive communication overload, where there is huge streams of communication, but actually very little connection. And it's just a lot of information being broadcast, but not real conversations. And again, the research which I found during my book, writing this book, really speaks clearly. Conversations aren't just nice small talk. In fact, when you have real conversations going, when people are able to really get to deeper than just what did you do on the weekend or how's the weather, actually it creates a real employee well-being experience. It creates
Mm,
engagement. And in a world where people are often so disengaged, and I'm sure the listeners and the watchers, the people who are watching this have had this experience where they're on a call, all the video is off, and everybody's on mute, and you don't really know, is anybody listening to me? Is there any conversation going on here, or am I just talking to myself? So this is a
okay.
massive disconnection, disengagement point, which is why we need this pillar, understanding how to have
Wow.
good conversations, how to really approach building those relationships and build trust in the team.
Amazing. When I hear the word culture intelligence, I had not a confusion, but a little bit inquiry actually about, is it related to the people working in the multicultural environments only, or even if we are working in the same culture but we have different and diverse team members, also it will be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for asking that question, because I think it's a really important point. For sure, this idea of cultural intelligence really helps and will support individuals and teams who are working across borders in global teams, which is some of the people that I help. But even if you're based in one location, even if you appear to be working in an environment which is fairly like one nationality, there's
Okay.
still huge diversity within those teams, whether that is religious diversity, possibly. It might be about people's heritage or background. It could be about generational, as we've mentioned. It could be about gender. So there are so many different aspects to this idea of cultural intelligence. And essentially, it's really helping people to understand that we are individuals. Just because we come from one country, we're not like everybody else from that same country,
Sure.
right? And I think
That's
this is
right.
really, when I found this approach, for me, this is where the power lay. I am not like every other person from the UK. You're not like every other person who's living in Saudi right now. So I think for me, this is so critical, because when we get below the surface of the stereotypes and the averages, we can get into, how am I showing up in my culture? Like, what's the way that I'm interacting with people, communicating? How do I understand my style? And this is about giving us a language, but also doing the profiles I do in my work. People get real time feedback about what they're doing and how they do it, and where they're different to maybe their team members, and maybe where that might create sometimes friction, sometimes conflict in their
Sure.
conversations.
Wow. Okay. طيب, what do you think, to take some question after that we can get
Ooh.
actually to the details of the pillars which you have mentioned right now?
Yeah,
Yes,
for
okay.
sure.
Two interventions are there from Helmi Adel Al-Sawi, is saying that, what do you think of a team leader who sees himself as less than the person on his team and always harasses him?
Okay.
Wow.
That's a
Yes.
big question. Okay, so Helmi, thank you for such
Critical
a,
one as well.
yeah, it's a big question. So basically, just to make sure I understand it, I think there's two parts to this question, as I understand it. There's one part of this question, which is the team leader perhaps feels not quite at the same, perhaps skilled or experienced, perhaps as the other team member. But the other team member, there's a sense of conflict or frustration there as well. So I think, this is a question about what's motivating this, what's going on underneath the surface. Is being shared here, brilliant question, is, the symptoms, the behaviors is what we can see and can be experienced. But we have to just understand what's really going on behind the scenes. What
Mm,
is it this person is really motivated by, and why are they acting like this? Now, we only have a question here. We don't know the full context. Have there been previous conflicts between these two people? Maybe there have been previous conversations that have driven to this point. But I think let's just assume it neutrally for now. My sort of suggestion would be, if you haven't done so, really just have a private conversation with this person, not in the open plan, but privately. I don't know your context, but if possible, try and do this away from the usual meeting rooms in the office, maybe somewhere private, or if it's possible, even offsite, if that's possible to go for a coffee together and just have an informal chat. And some of the best ways to explore this is to start with observations. So I've observed this behavior. I've observed this happened in the meeting earlier today. You want to keep it quite factual with this first opening. And then you can talk about the impact to you. So, this made me feel, or I felt as a result, this emotion. So then you're kind of getting specific about how you're experiencing it negatively. And then
Okay.
really help asking the question, getting super, super curious. Can you tell me more what's going on for you right now? Is there something that is you're needing support with right now? Is there something you want to share with me? And see where that conversation goes. So that kind of approach is really about not attacking the other person, but just starting with the observations, helping them understand the impact to you, but then giving them the opportunity to share what's on their mind, seeing what it is that might be happening there. But sometimes people don't share. They don't say what's really going on for them. So
Yeah.
then the most important thing, if you're the team leader, is to be really clear. Next time, what I need to see from you is this, or I'd
Wow.
love to see this go differently next time. This is what I would expect
And
from you.
in your opinion, Victoria, who should actually go and talk to this leader who sees himself, less than his team, or like I'm leading a team and I'm feeling that I don't have the right capability actually to lead the team, lead
Okay.
lead the team. Who should go and start talking to this leader actually to increase his confidence and
Yeah. So I
get
don't,
more from him?
that's a great question. I don't think that is for somebody else to do. That person, if they are feeling like that, then for me, it's about their self-leadership to recognize that, to recognize what they need to build up their leadership capabilities. I don't think that's for people who are particularly in the team to point that out to the leader, right?
Okay.
But they
Yes.
can give feedback about behaviors that are impacting them. So, if that's the way round it is, then I would suggest that, certainly giving feedback is okay. Asking for perhaps a change of behavior or a change of approach or doing things differently and seeing where that goes. But no, I don't think it's for somebody in the team below them to point out, you need to be more confident. You need
Yes,
to develop
sure.
your confidence.
Yes, sure. That is great. Let's have the second intervention. Sarah Faye is telling that your concern about the word soft skills is totally convenient yet. Do you think these kind of skills sometimes came as a gift, or it can be developed from scratch?
Brilliant question, Sarah.
From
Thank you so
scratch,
much.
from scratch.
Yeah, from scratch. So look, I'll be honest with you, like the fact you're here today watching and listening to this, I suspect nobody is starting from scratch here, right? I think the reality is that we develop human social skills throughout our whole lives. It's not something that happens when you just start work. That is part of our education systems. It's part of going to whether you go to university or you start a new job. At every level, we are developing social and human skills. What we're talking about here, though, is becoming a leader. So we're talking about taking it to the next level. So I don't believe anybody is developing from scratch. I think people may be starting from levels where they recognize there's a gap. They recognize perhaps they're not have paid as much attention to it. But this is where your intention really matters.
Yes,
If
okay.
you're
Like
committed,
sorry for disturbance, but
yeah, sure.
I feel it. I feel it like the language skills development. When you are going to take language, you are going to have a placement test, and the coach or instructor is going to tell you that your level now is 3, 4, 5, and we
Yeah.
are developing from this level.
Absolutely. And so, like, nobody here, I believe, is going to be starting from zero. You might feel like that, but this is the thing. This is why, in my book, the first pillar is confidence, because sometimes we put ourselves lower than we really are, that we don't recognize sometimes, actually, we do have really good innate skills. It's just something we haven't developed fully as yet.
That is great. There is another question from Zakaria. Thanks a lot for joining today and your time. He's telling that how to take decisions as a team leader. He's talking about the decision-making process.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. And of course, it completely depends. I'm going to say it's dependent on what kind of decision, in what kind of environment. And I think this is where culture comes into this, right? Because there are some teams, some organizations where ultimately it's the most senior person in the organization, in the leadership, who takes that ultimate decision making. So your role then is, as a team leader, is to gather opinions, to consult, to find out people's points of view, and then to present your suggestion, your recommendation to that person for the ultimate decision. In other organizations, it's more flat, egalitarian. So that means you have that decision-making power. But so it does depend on the environment that you're in. But really, I see any kind of decision making, any kind of influence is really also thinking from a communication point of view about not only what happens inside meetings in the actual, say, decision making point, milestone, but actually really thinking what happens 360. And again, I talk about this in the book. For me, this is really thinking very carefully with your influence, what happens before a meeting, who are the stakeholders you need to talk to who may not be the direct decision makers, what happens inside the meeting, but then many people miss the vital bit afterwards, what happens after the meeting. So even if you don't get to final decision points when you want to inside that meeting frame, even if you can't get people to say yes, there is still opportunity to influence afterwards, either individually or in smaller groups, or through what I call hidden influence, through people who are next to or beside the decision makers, and they can help advocate for you on your behalf. So this is a great question. It's a big question. I definitely recommend you read that chapter in my book.
Thank you so much for that. I will take from your words right now, and I will get to the next question of June Salama. Thanks a lot for joining us today and your time. He is saying that, can you influence people who don't look like you, think like you, or agree even with you?
Great question, John. I love that question. And you know what? The answer to that is, do you want to? Do you have the intention? Do you really kind of have the goal? And I think for me, this is where you have to understand that even if people don't agree with you, at some point, if you're working together in some way or form, either within one organization, or even if you're kind of, say, looking to influence clients or customers who are outside your organization, at some point, there is a common agenda. There is a common goal that you can agree on. Now, it may not be that to start with, it looks like you have an agreement about where you're both heading. But this is where I talk about in the book that you need to ladder up and find, perhaps at more of the macro level, the top level, what is that point you can agree on that you're both heading to? So even
common ground, you mean?
Common ground, exactly. And for me, this is so important because you can only influence if you both agree where you're heading. If one person's heading this way and the other person's heading that way, no, you're not going to be able to get to a point of agreement. But then beyond that, the other part of this question, which I really love, is people who do not think like you. Well, then that requires your empathy. If you are a leader, you need to understand that people are different. So you then have to understand what's in their heads. And that might require you to be super curious, ask really good questions, and listen. I have a whole chapter on listening because listening is so hard. It's not obvious or easy to do. So listening to those answers about what people are motivated by, what interests them, what they really want, and then thinking about, is there anything that you can do in what you're saying to frame it in a way that connects with that? That is really the secret.
That is amazing. Before getting into the details of our, framework and our 4 pillars, I remind everyone is watching and listening to us now regarding the QR code you will find on the corner above on the screen. You can get your book. I'm waiting for my copy right now, and you can do that too. Victoria, let's dig in actually and start by the first pillar, and the leadership with confidence, especially in this complex and multicultural environments. How to lead with confidence, how to get into the complications which we have, which we are living right now, and to do more and influence people in a good way.
Yeah. Well, I think, if I consider the people who are watching and listening, this is something that you'll be facing daily. And, whether it's about new problems coming your way, or simply the volume of communication and problems that you're having to deal with, we have to have a strong sense of self throughout that all. And that doesn't, as I mentioned earlier in this live, it doesn't happen once. You've got to develop that time and time again. So, what does that mean? That means that you have to know your value, and not from a place of arrogance. In fact, that's a really interesting question I get asked quite a lot. Is confidence the same as arrogance? My simple answer to that is no. If your intention is to be arrogant, well, of course, or to be better than other people, then that will come across. But confidence, ultimately for me, the definition is having a strong sense of who you are, what you do, how you add value, your unique ingredients in the world, and then reminding yourself time and time again. Now, this might sound really obvious, but actually we forget quite almost on a daily basis what we're about, because we get so busy being busy. We get so focused on delivery and the next thing and the next thing. And it's very easy to keep moving on without really thinking about, actually, there are so many great things that I've done here. And the tools and the exercises in the book for me are really about helping you in this first pillar to remind yourself regularly what it is you're really great at, and how you add unique value in this world, how you have impact. And this is part of our job as a leader, to lead ourselves first. We can't lead other people until you lead yourself.
Wow, amazing. While you are talking right now, actually, I felt more confident right now while I'm listening to you.
I love that. That's great.
I felt relieved and like this. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
that is good. Right, let's get into one very important word, and you repeated a lot. I have made an exercise today while I'm having the soft copy. I got it. I searched for the clarity word in your book, and I found it 57 times repeated. Yes, communicating with clarity to enhance and enforce the influence and the impact. What do you mean by clarity, and how can we get to be more and more clear and have the clarity about our objectives and goals while we are dealing with others?
I love the fact you found out how many times I use that word. That's fantastic. There probably is going to be a study of how many the frequency of the words that I use. I love that analysis.
Thanks
But
a lot.
listen, clarity is an important word, because it's often it's expressed sometimes in different ways to me. But people who come to me, they talk about the fact that they want to sound articulate. Sometimes they use the word eloquent, or they want to sound, even just simply sound like a leader. And what they mean is they see either people in the media, or they see leaders in their organization they've worked with historically, and they just have a way with words. They have a way of making something very complex really clear, very simple sometimes, but simplicity is not basic. Simplicity sometimes is effective, because it means you understand how to translate complex ideas into ideas
Very
that
simple
motivate,
way. Yes.
that inspire. So this is what I mean by clarity. And what I talk about inside that particular pillar in the book is really about how you frame the way you talk. So using less words and getting more simple in the way you express things. Now, there are some cultures where actually people do use a lot of words to explain what they mean. And that's absolutely fine, particularly in context of being with a lot of other people who express themselves that way. But when you then move into different kinds of cultures, you have to recognize you may need to adapt your style, become more direct in some places, perhaps use also, I talk about in the book, being really, yes, your words matter, but so does your tone of voice, your certainty in how you express yourself, your non-verbal communication, your body language. These are also really important parts of how you land what you say. And, for me, this comes actually from my earliest days in my first career was in marketing, thinking about how do I communicate ideas to consumers, to customers. And that idea, like how do you really get very clear, translates also in the way we speak as well. So for me, this is why clarity really matters.
It's a mindset,
Yeah.
Yani, when I'm telling you an idea or I'm telling you a thought, I feel that if I feel that you are a customer and I need to, sell this idea to you, I will think in that mindset of, clarity, simplicity, concise as well, to the point while I'm talking. All of that, I believe that will lead us to the clarity.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And I think, I've talked about speaking the same language as other people. And I don't mean English or
Yes,
Arabic
sure.
or whatever it might be. What I mean by that is recognizing that sometimes there are keywords that come up, or there are certain ways that people talk. And it's not to mimic that style, but to recognize they talk in that way for a reason. There's a reason why they express themselves in that way. And clarity sometimes is recognizing it and knowing how to also perhaps echo sometimes that style to help you be more in line with them. So they feel like you understand them, that you've got that
Wow.
empathy to how they are.
Yes, that is amazing. Now I will get to the critical point which we have discussed earlier in the episode regarding difficult or critical conversations with our team and the leader to a team members, or the opposite.
Mm.
What are the best tips you can give us today regarding how to bridge and overcome the difficult conversation, especially when we are working with diverse team?
I think that's so important. And particularly for people also who are working with teams in different locations, either in one country or multiple countries. It's really difficult, right? Because you can't go over and have a conversation and say, what did you mean by that?
Right.
Because you can't. And so it can get very difficult very quickly. And let's be real, this isn't just about misunderstandings or miscommunications. This can lead to really big problems, people problems within teams, problems where actually this not only creates friction and causes discomfort among the wider team, but it actually slows down projects. It actually can stop projects, which is
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
about really big business risks. So for me, this isn't about, again, soft skills about, can you find your way through a difficult situation? This is about solving real business problems. And if we don't do this, there can be monetary risks to your business. So how do we do it? There are many steps that I talk about in the book, but I'm going to talk about the beginning part of this, which is when we're in a difficult situation, we are often caught up in our minds with how we see the situation. We often arrive in a place, and it depends on context and the other person, but we may be in a place where we are thinking that they are doing something to us. They always do this. They are being difficult, in inverted commas. They
Yes.
are being unreasonable. And we can very quickly get into that separation. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give on this live is hit the pause button, because this monologue in our mind
Dialogue.
keeps going on and on and on. And we get into this feeling of, well, I'm right and they're wrong. And it creates the separation even further. So we have to hit the pause button. We have to give ourselves, in some situations, the moment to calm down. And if it's a very difficult conversation, sometimes we might even need to leave it for a day, 24 hours, to really reduce the emotions that are around this, on both sides. And we have to think about how we're going to enter into this difficult conversation. Not only what are we going to say, but actually really thinking about, have I put down my emotional baggage by the door? Have I left it behind? That I'm going to go in clean and try and find out with curiosity, I've mentioned today, what might be going on from their perspective, getting them to help you understand how they're seeing the world. And certainly we have to make sure, as I mentioned earlier today, that we know where we're heading to, that you've got the same common ground, the same common goal that you're working towards. Because that can be the misunderstanding fundamentally, that you're asking two different questions, which means therefore you'll never get to the same answer or solution. So
Okay.
I think those are really good starting points for the challenging conversation bridge. But hitting the pause button can help us so often in these situations to really just think for a moment, what could be going on here? What am I missing?
Okay, you reminded me actually with the book, Surrounded by Idiots by Alexander Erickson. When the author wrote the book because he met someone who think like this, who think I'm right, and all around me actually are wrong and are saying something unreasonable. And he started to search actually why he thinks like this. And after that, when he did more and more, he found that according to the differences in our culture, personalities, and the more factors, it affects actually the message which we are sending to each other from time to time. And as you told, when we pause and try to understand what is going on the other side, I believe that it will give us a good privilege to start from.
I love the sound of that book. I've not read it personally, but the interesting thing about it is, even if you don't say it out loud, oh, those people are idiots, I'm surrounded by idiots, your body language could say it. So the other thing to be really clear on is, even if you think you're very good and you're not saying out loud the words that you're irritated or frustrated, your body language, your tone of voice might betray you, which is why we need to hit the pause button, because communication isn't just what we're saying, it's what our bodies are doing as well. And you might be showing that frustration. So we have to have that really also very aware. How are we showing up into conversations? How are people receiving us? And thinking about communication at this level too.
Exactly. Let's get to the role of the cultural intelligence in in building trust and connection and the proper communication actually between us and between the people we are dealing with. How this mindset is affecting any leader, and especially if a global leader.
Yeah, I think, thank you so much for drawing the focus to this, because the cultural intelligence approach isn't just about knowledge or learning facts about how this person might be different or having the awareness even. If it stops at awareness, then nothing really seriously changes. Actually, this is all about an approach which is absolutely about you adapting and acting. So really thinking about, okay, I understand this person is interacting with me differently from expected, communicating differently, getting that curiosity to understand why. But once you have that knowledge, then understanding what is it you want to do with that. So make a decision. Cultural intelligence is putting that into action, understanding where you're going to adapt yourself to get to a better or a different result. So let's take a challenging conversation. Maybe you recognize that you have been asking people on a call to unmute and just say what they think. And there's complete silence. Let's imagine this is going on and you're trying to encourage people to contribute. And the more you say, come on, just say what you think, I want to hear, there's just silence, right? This is not great. So you have to recognize that there's a reason why they're silent, that these are maybe people who are very experienced. So why are they not speaking? If you go and have a conversation with one of them, you might discover that they are collectivists. They like to discuss in groups or in small groups before they express their opinion. Maybe they don't want to express an opinion in front of you as a senior manager in the room. So you have to really then think about what do you adapt in your approach and how you run that meeting. How can you get more creative in contribution? Maybe you do more breakout rooms. Maybe you do more anonymous word clouds and things like this to allow people to contribute without being called on specifically and individually. And that requires you to get creative and take action. So this is all about application of what you learn, understanding, curiosity, but then understanding what you then change.
Wow, amazing. Yes, there is one question from John Salama. He's telling that what future skills we should develop to stay relevant in a globally connected world. What do you think?
Brilliant question. Thank you, John. I really like those questions you're asking. So look, like I'll be really honest with you. Of course, we haven't specifically talked in lots of detail here today about AI. And of course, AI is part of every conversation. I'm a great believer that we all need to accelerate our AI skills very rapidly in an ever evolving environment. We need to stay on top of what it can do for us and also how we can responsibly and appropriately use it within our workplaces. But the reality is, your question at the heart of it, the future skills are your human skills. And I think what we will see are those people who know how to use AI, of course, having a differentiating factor, but that will only take you so far. That's not going to replace, humans in the sense of interactions. So I think in this new world that we're living in, this world where, yes, AI can help us be more productive and take away some of those roles which are more functional. That requires, therefore, even more of us as humans to be emotionally intelligent, culturally intelligent. And that is how we keep our differentiating factor from, say, the roles that AI will come in to replace. So, I've got children. We were talking off air before we went live. I've got children in their teenage years. This is what I'm talking about with them, how to develop their critical thinking, how to develop their human skills. So whatever new careers evolve, they're ready for it. They're really ready for it.
Yes, okay. I will go from this point actually to my last question in today's episode regarding AI. Once you mentioned right now the artificial intelligence, and we are in the era of the artificial intelligence. How do you see the AI is affecting and reshaping the leadership and leadership skills? And how it matters, or how it could be differentiated from the human skills, as you told right now?
Yeah. For me, AI is incredibly exciting, and I clearly use it a lot myself. I use it every day. But the key differentiation I want to kind of make sure people are very clear on is AI is fantastic for efficiency, for speeding up, for summarizing written text that you've already created. It's great for summarizing things, your thoughts. It can be used for brainstorming and research. These are all great things. And by the way, this book is not written by AI. It's written by me. Just so everybody's very, very clear. This is all my original content. But I think the point for me is that this is what AI is fantastic for. It doesn't replace a conversation like this. The conversation we're having here, the way that we're interacting with each other, laughing with each other about different points, having, letting the conversation flow and really connect. It doesn't replace the questions that are being, given to us by people on screen, unless they are AI. I hope they're not. They're real people. But do you see what I mean? Like, this, in theory, AI is really exciting because it should, in theory, open up new opportunities, more time for the human connection, the conversations. That's what I'm really excited about. If we use it responsibly and appropriately, that is the key to this.
Oh, okay. That is great. I will take also a last question from the chat box. It's coming, without a name. It's coming like LinkedIn user. Say, please, how to expect the good results while communicating with others?
Okay, so what does good look like? I think that really is going to be individual depending on the interactions that you're having. But we all know what that feels like, right? That we know that experience when we get on with somebody and it's just so much easier to get things done. That means that we are able to not be misunderstanding each other or miscommunicating. It means that things go quickly because we understand each other. It means that there are new ideas that come up because even if they're slightly different from what we expect, we can work with cultural intelligence to make sure that we are open to those new ideas, that we can create innovation and deliver it quickly. So for me, what does good look like? It means getting faster in business. It means being able to accelerate your career. It means getting those promotions that you want. These are all benefits. And I see it in the work that I do with the people that I work with.
Awesome. Amazing. Before concluding our discussion and our episodes, Victoria, today, I assure you that, I benefit a lot actually from the discussion and from the thoughts which you have presented right now. What are the, 2 or 3 tips you are giving to the people who are watching and listening us today, especially the people who are working on managerial level or leadership position, or even global leaders?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much. I've found this conversation really great. And
Thank you so much.
what I want to sort of leave the people who are listening and watching this with is, of course, I would love you to buy a book, but
Sure.
you know what? I'm going to be really slightly challenging on this. I don't want you to read this book. Really, honestly, I don't want you to read
Yeah.
it. I want you to activate it. I want you to turn it into action. I hope you've got a sense from me today that I'm all about the practical, making things change, making things improve and grow and develop. And for me, this is the most important thing. So don't just read it, activate it, do the exercises. There's a bonus resource book with every single book. You just download it when you buy your own, and then share it. Like, who else do you know who wants to become a global leader? Share it with me. Tell me what happened next, how you realized your goals. That would be the thing that I'm super excited by.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Really, I appreciate your presence today, your time, your joining, and presenting all of those great thoughts. And I'm sure that we will come again here in the second and third and fourth books for you under the umbrella of human capabilities and human skills.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sameh. I really, really appreciate it. And if it's okay, I might just offer, like, if it's, there are people
Yes,
out
sure.
there
Go ahead.
who would,
Whatever you like.
yeah. Well, obviously, very kindly, you've shared about the book, but if people, have been really activated by today, are really excited about, okay, what's coming up for them in 2026, just a final word. I'm really, offering the chance for 3 people watching this, listening to this, the chance to have a 2026 clarity call with me. So I've got 3 of those spots before the end of the year. If you would like to get hold of one of those, you can apply. I think we've got a link somewhere, haven't we, which we can share. But I would love to offer that as a thank you as well for people watching and listening today.
That is great. Thank you so much. I would like to say thank you to everyone joined us today in the episode and watched and listened to our conversation. I remind you again, the QR code, you will find it in the above corner. You can get your copy from Become a Global Leader book, which published last month. And through the links which we are going to share through the comments, and as well also within the description of the episodes, you can apply for the workshop or for the clarity call actually announced right now by Victoria. Thank you so much, and see you not next week. Actually, we will take a break. After that, we will come the next week, talking about cybersecurity with one of our esteemed guests coming on the show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Victoria, once again, and see you soon, inshallah.
Thank you so much.